The history of North Korea begins with the division of the Korean Peninsula, but to understand its roots, we must first go back to the early 20th century. Korea had been a unified kingdom for centuries before it was annexed by Japan in 1910, beginning a period of harsh colonial rule. Koreans endured economic exploitation, cultural suppression, and forced labor under Japanese control until the end of World War II in 1945. The war lasted for 3 years, devastating the peninsula and killing millions. In 1953, an armistice was signed, creating the heavily fortified Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, between the two Koreas. However, no peace treaty was ever signed, and the war technically continues to this day. Under Kim's leadership, North Korea became a highly militarized state. The regime prioritized the development of its military and implemented strict control over the economy, politics, and society. Kim Il-sung solidified his power by eliminating rivals and establishing a cult of personality, portraying himself as the eternal leader of the Korean people. By the 1960s and 1970s, North Korea had developed a stable, though rigid, state under Kim Il-sung's leadership. The government controlled all aspects of life, and dissent was not tolerated. The regime's propaganda machine glorified Kim and portrayed North Korea as a socialist paradise, even as economic hardships began to take hold. The capital, Pyongyang, was transformed into a showcase city, full of grand monuments and carefully curated appearances of prosperity. By the 1960s and 1970s, North Korea had developed a stable, though rigid, state under Kim Il-sung's leadership. The government controlled all aspects of life, and dissent was not tolerated. The regime's propaganda machine glorified Kim and portrayed North Korea as a socialist paradise, even as economic hardships began to take hold. The capital, Pyongyang, was transformed into a showcase city, full of grand monuments and carefully curated appearances of prosperity. In the 1990s, North Korea faced a severe crisis. The collapse of the Soviet Union, North Korea's main economic backer, left the country in dire straits. This, combined with poor management and natural disasters, led to a devastating famine that killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people. During this time, Kim Il-sung passed away in 1994, and his son, Kim Jong-il, took power. Kim Jong-il inherited a country in crisis, but like his father, he maintained strict control over society. Under his leadership, North Korea became increasingly isolated and repressive. The regime continued to prioritize its military, particularly the development of nuclear weapons. In 2006, North Korea conducted its first nuclear test, drawing condemnation from the international community and leading to severe economic sanctions. In 2011, Kim Jong-il died, and power passed to his son, Kim Jong-un, marking the third generation of Kim family rule. Kim Jong-un quickly consolidated power, executing or sidelining potential rivals within the regime. Under his leadership, North Korea has accelerated its nuclear weapons program, conducting several nuclear tests and launching increasingly advanced ballistic missiles. Despite international pressure and sanctions, North Korea has refused to abandon its nuclear ambitions, claiming it needs these weapons to defend itself from external threats. At the same time, Kim Jong-un has attempted to modernize parts of the country, including economic reforms and limited engagement with the outside world. In recent years, there have been moments of diplomacy. Kim Jong-un has met with South Korean President Moon Jae-in and even held summits with US President Donald Trump, raising hopes for peace on the Korean peninsula. However, these efforts have yet to lead to significant change, and the future of North Korea remains uncertain. Today, North Korea remains one of the most isolated and authoritarian states in the world. Its history is shaped by war, division, and dictatorship, and its future is closely tied to the fate of the Korean peninsula and the global balance of power. Understanding North Korea's past is essential to grappling with the challenges it poses in the present.